Welcome to ThreatCon 1, the place to be to talk about emerging cyber threats with people who matter. I'm Tom Bain, the Chief Marketing Officer at Vulncheck. My sidekick today is Patrick. Introduce yourself.
What's up? Patrick Garrity at Vulncheck, security researcher here. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. And this is our first episode, and I can't think of a better way to kick this thing off than by having Jen Easterly, former head of CISA. Jen, thank you so much for giving us the time.
My pleasure, dude.
We're honored, so thank you. You're one of the most influential and most visible people in the cybersecurity industry. Again, we're just kind of humbled by having you here, so we're psyched about that. But give us an idea of what Jen Easterly has been up to this summer, right? We're coming out of almost Labor Day weekend. What does Jen Easterly do in the summer to do really awesome stuff, or just kick back and chill?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's great to be with you guys. I've been fully employed almost since the age of 14 when I started scooping ice cream at Baskin-Robbins, and then went off to the Army, and then, have been pretty fully going at it hard for a really long time. And so over the past many months, I really had an opportunity to kind of chill a little bit, spend time with friends, spend time with family, spend time with my little puppy, which has been very therapeutic. Do some reading, do a lot of guitar playing, which I know you're a big fan of as well.
I love that.
I know you went off to Oasis, and I'm very, very jealous of that. I was able to see Metallica, took my son to Metallica, so then my best friend, so that was awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome.
I saw Springsteen in Prague with my little brother, so that was super cool. So yeah, I've been all over, especially traveling in Europe. I was in Lisbon, and then I went to see a friend of mine in Rome, and I happened to be there on the day of the conclave when the Pope was elected. So I was able to be in St. Peter's Square when they announced the first American Pope. So it's just these little moments of grace and joy and serendipity. So it's been pretty cool.
That is awesome. Now, if you had to rank between Metallica
and the Pope,
and then Springsteen, could you rank those in any way?
I mean, it was just really special being in St. Peter's Square. I was actually an exchange student in Italy when I was 16. I spent time in a little town called Trieste. And I hadn't been back to Rome forever. And so it was just really, really cool to be there. But also, it was really fun. Metallica with my son, Springsteen with my brother. But, the thing about being there for the conclave, I think was, that's a real moment in history. So it was a special thing. But, whenever you can spend time with friends and family, that's always a good day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Same thing. It's rare to get that amount of time off and be able to do those things that are so special. So
Totally.
I really can value that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you remember I sent you that picture, Patrick. I was in Brussels, and I went to the design museum that had a whole exhibit on the art and design of skateboards.
I remember that now. That was awesome. Anytime
cool.
Anyone sends me something skateboarding, that's security and skateboarding are pretty much my life.
Exactly. I know. It's so cool. So it's great.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Patrick helped me get a new skateboard this summer out in Vegas as well, too.
Well, you should go to Brussels. You guys should both go to this museum. It's very cool. It's the whole history of skateboarding from when it was, some piece of wood somewhere, and then, the very elite stuff that I'm sure you have on your wall there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I maintain a little bit of a museum,
just a little bit.
So it's fun. I think we have 200 boards right now, which is kind of excessive, but
amazing.
That's awesome. Well, that sounds like an awesome journey. Yeah, I'll have to remember that next time I'm in Europe.
Totally.
For sure. Well, we're Patrick and I were in Europe last year together at Vuln Forecast, actually in the Netherlands. That was fun. We had a great time there, both in Utrecht. And then we went to Amsterdam for the final night.
Yeah, that's coming up in late September. They're doing it again. I think it's in Wales this time, maybe. So yeah, pretty cool group of people. So
Yeah, my son goes to school in Scotland, and so he gets to travel all over Europe. I don't know when he studies because he seems to be on the road the whole time. But we were able to meet up in Helsinki for something, and that was actually really, really cool. So yeah, I hope you guys get a chance to travel more.
So, in the midst of all of this, did you make a little bit of time for Cyber Summer Camp, or otherwise known as Black Hat or DEF CON?
Oh, you know what? I didn't. So DEF CON's always my favorite. And I love, love, love going there, particularly in my last job at CISA. But this year it was the same weekend that my son was directing a play at his camp. He's a camp counselor, so we actually drove up to New Hampshire that weekend. So I missed Hacker Summer Camp, but I was out at Black Hat doing a couple things with friends out there, a couple panels on sort of the nexus between cybersecurity and AI. That's what I've been spending probably most of my time on, kind of like from a professional standpoint, and then doing some stuff with the Huntress guys.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, I think maybe like I'm sure our audience is dying to know too. Like, all right, so we've seen some really interesting things happen and occur this summer, from like the recent warnings about Salt Typhoon to like network edge devices being exploited. I would say, Patrick, probably like en masse. We've had,
continually.
yeah,
I mean, that's
it's like
that's always happening.
continuous exploitation.
Yeah.
We're also seeing, which probably dovetails right into what you were just saying about AI gen, which is we've seen McAfee reported that there's a 1700% surge in deepfakes, where like unsuspecting Americans, or just looking at things and getting duped. What's been the most interesting thing maybe around AI that you've seen, that you've observed, and that you're kind of working on right now?
Yeah, so just to address the Salt Typhoon, and you know how much I love calling these things these sexy names, right? Whether it's the Chinese PLA, also known as Volt Typhoon, or the Chinese MSS, also known as Salt Typhoon. So, I mean, sadly, that report, it was a bit shocking, but it didn't surprise me. From everything I saw at CISA, we saw the Chinese becoming increasingly aggressive, both from an espionage perspective. But what really worried me the most, and we haven't heard much about it, and I don't think that's because, mischief managed. It's more about the PLA hacking into our most sensitive critical infrastructure. And, I testified on this when I was in the last job, but going after water and power and transportation and communication, not to steal data, but rather to be able to launch disruptive attacks in the event of a crisis in the Taiwan Straits. And of course, the great team at CISA, the Hunt team, working with the rest of the organization and our federal partners and with technology companies, were able to work with private sector companies to help them hunt for and then ultimately evict these actors. But what we always said is we thought what we found to date was really just the tip of the iceberg. So I think there's more of that activity that's likely going on, even though it's not in the news from a day-to-day perspective. So I think it's just important to not write that off, even though it's not at the top of the headlines. I've always said that China is really the pacing threat. And even as we focus on, continued cyber attacks from Russia, Iran, North Korea, and then the scourge of cyber criminals going after our businesses, large and small. I think really keeping our eye on China and using the full toolbox to be able to hold them at risk as well and to deter their behavior. So I just think that's really, really important. And for the business you guys are in, as well as I do, the way that China is getting into our critical infrastructure is typically not using these like super exotic techniques. I mean, once they get inside, yes, they're living off the land, they're using the native processes of the operating system, but basically they're getting in by taking advantage of the same old technology product defects and vulnerabilities. And that's why we push so hard for the whole Secure by Design initiative. And I was really pleased to see that the current administration is continuing to champion that and advance that, because I think it's probably one of the most important things that the team was able to do. And, frankly, one of the most important things that um, we need to do as extensible to AI.
That's interesting. Where you look at the there are some new technologies being applied, right? Like to some of the attacks, but it's also kind of like some of the techniques still remain like kind of the same.
So basic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, like the CISA campaigns, because it's like, yeah, unfortunately, people still haven't enabled MFA in a lot of places. They haven't removed legacy technologies. A lot of EOL, like end of life
Yeah.
technology, even still.
Yeah. Taking
And
advantage
yeah,
of, exactly.
some of that's related to business cycles, but it's like, unfortunately, nowadays it's the cyber warfare changes things where you are forced to modernize for security
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
have to say, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there on the AI side. You mentioned the statistic about the just overwhelming number of AI charged deep fakes, and there is a lot of that out there. But, I've spent the past year probably really trying to get deep in some of these topics, particularly at the nexus of AI and cybersecurity. And I have to say, I am increasingly optimistic about the ability for AI, powerful AI, and this is accelerating every day, but for powerful AI capabilities to be the game changer in cybersecurity, because obviously it's going to enhance cyber defenders, it's going to enhance attackers. But I think if we are able ultimately to use AI capabilities to refactor and transform the legacy code at scale, like that's where you're able to make the decisive difference in driving down dramatically the number of exploitable flaws. I mean, in some sense, tongue in cheek, I like to talk about it as the end of cybersecurity, certainly the end of cybersecurity as we know it. Doesn't mean that threats won't go away. It doesn't mean we can't continue with cyber hygiene and collaboration. But ultimately, I think if you're able to refactor and transform the legacy code at scale, that's where you can really have the decisive advantage in creating safer and more secure software. And as you guys know as well as I do, we really don't have a cybersecurity problem. We ultimately have a software quality problem. And so
Right.
I am hopeful about some of these AI capabilities. You asked about what got me pumped over the summer. I don't know if you guys saw out at, I guess at DEF CON. I wasn't there, but I know they announced the results of the AI cyber challenge
yeah,
that DARPA
Yes.
had run. And it was really encouraging, right? Like this was the end of, I think, 2 years. The top AI systems, as I understand it, was able to locate the vast majority of the flaws that were specifically hidden, but also to discover new flaws that nobody knew anything about. To be able to do it in like less than an hour, what would take humans days and weeks, and to do it at a much smaller cost. And so I think, and again, even though things are moving really fast, I think it's still pretty early days. And so I'm excited about the possibility of these types of tools, both being able to find flaws, to fix flaws, and then to do the transformation of insecure code. So I think there's stuff to be excited about. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, but I think
Sure.
ultimately it's our responsibility as leaders and technologists and cyber professionals to be able to tap into the power of AI and then be able to ensure that we're reducing the harms that it could bring as well.
That's so interesting because I mean, Patrick and I talk about. I mean, like AI is a topic at Vulncheck a lot, right? I mean, it comes up in
yeah,
like different contexts across the business, and it like you could make the case that I've often thought that like the precision of what AI could do. So, like on the marketing side, if I decide that I want to cut some time and use Chat GPT on something, it never gives me exactly what I want. And I've always thought it's like taking that time to humanly train the LLM is what is going to get us there to like a precision result, particularly in cyber.
It's not going to replace, right? I mean, there are some things that will replace, but I think the best use of AI, certainly for right now, like if you've read Super Agency, Reid Hoffman's recent book, is really to make humans more capable, right? And presumably the whole audience is using and trying, the whole range of chatbots, whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Claude or Perplexity or, some of the other models. But at the end of the day, I think we should all keep in mind that the AI that we're using, notwithstanding the problems that still exist, the hallucinations that still exist, it's the worst that it'll ever be. It's only going to continue to get better. And so I'm generally bullish if, and this is why I was really encouraged by the other big document that came out over the past couple months, the White House AI Action Plan, specifically talked about, again, applying the secure by design principles to AI capabilities, right? So it's all about making sure that you are developing and designing and testing and delivering AI with security as a top priority. And that's just not the way it's been for software over the past 40 years. Security's always been a bolt on. It's why we have an entire multi-billion dollar cybersecurity industry. But if you think about AI, it's so different in the way that it's got unprecedented visibility because, everybody's got eyes on intense market competition. And then I think a positive trend is the increasing move to the open source system. So like ultimately it's going to be you're going to be able to discover and fix flaws much faster than we've experienced in regular software. And you saw that in GPT-5, right? As soon as it came out, everybody like, how can we hack into this? How can we jailbreak it? What are the things? And then they discovered them, they published them, and the fixes then went into place. And so I actually, again, I think it's another reason to feel encouraged about these capabilities. And, obviously there will be risks, there will be things that go wrong, but I tend to be a ridiculously, perpetual optimist. So I want to believe that this technology will be great for this field as well as so many other things.
I think I think it's great on the innovation side. I mean, I use and I think it's knowing your limits too. Like inherently, when you have a new technology, it introduces a ton of risk. And this is innovation, like building companies for a long time. That's the reality. But yeah, I think you have a combination of people now that have a tool that can code that don't know how to code. But naturally, I think the promising aspect of the things you're talking about is you get these people in the right channels and you get it into a right software development lifecycle. I look at it as like, I'm really a prototyper. This shouldn't go into production code, but it helps me get to the result much faster, quicker. And that doesn't mean that should be the production thing that you build. But ultimately AI accelerates everything because now you can prototype, you can build. And then on the security side, I think the promising aspects of the things it could do, like you're referring to, from discovering vulnerabilities to fixing vulnerabilities, really has just a ton of potential. So it's
Yeah, it's
cool.
exciting. I really do think it's like the most exciting time to be in this field. So, particularly in the field that you guys are in terms of dealing with the massive amount of vulnerabilities that are in our software, I think this will be a game changer.
This is true, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna borrow that from you. That we don't have a people problem, we have a software problem.
Oh yeah, we
I
don't have a
love it.
cybersecurity problem. We have a software quality
Oh
problem.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
My
that.
gift to you, Tom.
You know what? I appreciate that. I love it. I love it. Well, thinking about problems, we do have to talk about some of that. You've obviously been like your involvement and your contributions to cyber have been like just it unbelievable, particularly to like the government, but like also to the private sector too, Jen. When you think about like the observations that you're thinking about around like national security and the challenges around national security, what are you seeing like that's most impacting things like the private, like this has been a question that's been on, probably like a lot of podcasts for a long time, but like
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your perspective on like the challenges between private or even the successes that you're seeing between private and public in the
Yeah.
cyber arena, but like in the interest of protecting national security.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the vast majority of critical infrastructure, and that was CISA's mission, is to protect and defend critical infrastructure. And so the vast majority is owned and operated by the private sector. And so you have to have that partnership. But it was always to me more than this hackneyed idea of public-private partnership that we've been talking about for 20 plus years. It was really about how to catalyze real-time operational collaboration in the way that the federal government is adding value to the private sector based on visibility in terms of what you see in red space from a foreign intelligence perspective, based on what CISA saw, given vast visibility into the federal civilian executive branch, because that's a huge target for threat actors, as we know, given what the law enforcement community had visibility in from their perspective, and then combining that with what the private sector sees from their own unique visibility. If you can put that together in real time, using scalable platforms, so it's not this sort of transactional one-on-one, I'm going to send something to the federal government and wait forever to get me feedback for it. I mean, that's what we tried to really build with the Joint Cyber Planning Office, which we call the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, was to one platform for sharing. But I would say the bumper sticker was, how can the federal government add value to the private sector? Because, I experienced this when I was in the private sector, and I thought I knew government very well. I just didn't necessarily feel like it was a really coherent, collaborative partnership. And so, it's hard though. It's really hard, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there's expectations on the side of government, there's expectations on the side of the private sector, there's concerns about sharing, there's privacy concerns, there's regulatory concerns. And so, that at the end of the day is why we work so hard to build those relationships, because people don't trust institutions, they trust people. And so getting to know and work with like Patrick, for example, on the Kev, right, and all the work we did on that. And
I think the Kev is one of the most impactful things that
totally
CISA did.
Right. I mean, I totally give credit to the team. It really was. I mean, and you and I talked about this. Whenever I go out and chat with people, people always bring up the Kev, because at the end of the day, everybody's resource constrained and they're all looking for a signal that says, where do I focus my resources? So like kudos to the team at CISA, and kudos to you, because I still love that thing that you made that
towel?
Was where is it? I love that
I'm
towel.
laughing. I don't have the towel one, but I have one I made that was never released. This was like the categorization one.
I'm like a frustrated art.
I'm gonna
get
in trouble. Nobody's ever seen this.
No, I love that thing. So, right. I mean, I love, actually, it's why I love music. That's why I love guitar. I love to bring together the technical fields like cybersecurity and then design and art. And so many people in our field have that gene of kind of art and design. And so, I thought that was one of the coolest things that was done with the Kev.
A lot of time I spend is you spend so much time in the trenches and the data, and you're staring at Excel spreadsheets. I mean, this morning I was looking at like threat actors, countries, the vulnerabilities they hit, and the industries they're targeting.
Wow.
And it's a spreadsheet, and it's like, okay, like I need some visuals to figure out what is going on here.
Right.
Draw me some circles and put some color to it so I can understand what industries are getting hit, what countries are hitting them. Any of those questions. And then you can kind of go down and understand the wider trends. So to be honest, I didn't really start doing that until like the CISA Kev stuff. And so that was some of the stuff that was so interesting to me. And then I think for me, I just kept on finding more Kevs that weren't on CISA Kev. So, and then it just happened. I came to Voncheck and they were like, let's make our Kev free too. The journey was a little bit
approach,
like,
right?
Yeah, natural from like, okay, this is cool. Like, from that perspective. So, sorry, I'm getting excited now.
That's awesome.
Love it, dude.
Everybody loves the towel. We actually made those last year. I think it was for RSA, Patrick, when
the other one.
We made those into cooling towels.
Oh, I got one of those too.
They were kind of cool to the touch. Those were great.
Yeah. I don't know if I saw
here's
that.
the towel. I do have one.
Okay, yeah, I did see that from RSA.
And then this one is from last year, I think, the cooling towel.
That's the cooling towel.
And my daughter told me, she's like, "Hey, Daddy, you really got to retire the towel thing. You gotta create something new."
What?
That was during Black Hat this year. She's like, you kind of played this for like 2 years, Dad.
Come up with something better.
Thank you.
That's what we need with our kids, right? Keep us humble.
All of their opinions. You You should see how my kids made fun of me about Innovation Sandbox, Patrick, from last year. I mean, it's almost a daily thing, but
they keep you on your feet.
I know, this is true. Well, we talked about a little bit about secure by design. We before we even started recording, we were talking about the SBOM program. Is there any sort of like next big thing that you'd like to see out of CISA and out of some of the other areas that are focused in on some of the problems that sort of, when you left, they inherited those initiatives?
I have to say, I thought like we tried to get the big ideas right at CISA. It was about public-private operational collaboration, the Secure by Design campaign, so people understood how to keep themselves safe online. It was, working with boards and CEOs on looking at cyber risk as a core business risk. Our whole Shields Up campaign was around that. We had a real focus on target-rich cyber poor, right? So we focused on hospitals and schools and water. But at the end of the day, I think the most important initiative was the Secure by Design one, and again, it's great to see that the current team seems to be continuing to advance that. But that is truly what I believe is going to make the biggest difference in getting to a world where you have driven down cyber risk significantly, where ransomware is a shocking anomaly, where software vulnerabilities are as rare as plane collisions. I think the only way to do that is the secure by design piece of this, which is vendors focused on design and delivery of software with security as the top priority. It's universities making sure that they're actually teaching students about security. Even as AI does more and more coding, the security piece of that is still really important. Making sure that legislatures and lawmakers and policymakers focus on how do we think about software liability. I mean, testified a lot around that. I don't know if we'll ever
Right.
get there, but at the end of the day, I think we have to ensure that vendors bear a certain amount of responsibility and not all the focus is on the victims. And then the last big thing that the team did before I left was this whole idea of secure by demand, right? You can say the vendors need to create secure software and put the priority on security as opposed to just rushing features to market or driving down costs. But at the end of the day, we all need to demand that our software is as secure as possible. And so we're consumers, we have purchasing power, we have a vote in that. And so all of those things together. And then the big plus is the idea of AI being a game changer and finding and fixing and refactoring, finding and fixing flaws and refactoring insecure code. So I like in a perfect world, I think continuing the momentum on that. And I was really excited to see that the current administration specifically called out in the AI action plan the need for cybersecurity, but specifically AI that is also secure by design. So I think, you can see even in a pro innovation, a pro US globally competitive, light on regulation, I think you can see like all these levers coming together to help drive down ultimately the number of exploitable flaws in the software that frankly powers our lives, the software that we rely upon every hour of every day.
So interesting. Well, we're coming close to the end of our session, which I'm kind of bummed about. But again, thank you very much for coming on with us, Jen. We're going to see you in a couple of weeks at our ThreatCon one event.
Yeah, excited.
Where you're going to be doing a really fun conversation. Unfortunately, you have to deal with me for that. But Patrick's going to be there. It's going to be fun. We've got great content there, but can you give the audience a little preview of your discussion with Andy Boyd that's going to be very interesting, coming from two very different perspectives in the cyber world?
Yeah, I would say Rock'em Sock'em Robots and Cyber. How about
Love
that
it.
as the
Love
bumper
it.
sticker? What do you think? Andy
it.
and I have known each other for a really long time, and he's fantastic. And the different he's coming at it from one perspective, coming from the CIA. I'm coming at it. I spent a lot of time at the NSA, but also at CISA, and so I think it'll be a really good complementary discussion, both from a defender's perspective as well as like how to think about it from an adversary perspective. So I think it's going to be awesome. I'm totally psyched.
Todd will be there too, Todd Beardsley.
Okay, all right.
Former
That'll be
CISA.
good.
So
I'm sure
we'll
he'll
be
have
hanging
some
out.
interesting things to say.
So yeah,
so much
it'll be
fun.
fun.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to it. Can't thank you enough for spending some time with us today, Jen. It's
my pleasure.
It's an honor to be able to hang out with you for a little while. So thank you very much. And for everybody out there too, this is our first episode and we're setting the bar pretty high, Patrick.
Yeah. It's great.
We certainly are.
Well, welcome. It's great to spend time with you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jen.
For sure. Jen, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.